Blood and bloody ashes, that was good! I know I just made a video defending the show, but by the light, I wasn't expecting Season 3 to start off this good. So let's have a look at those first 3 episodes and my thoughts on them. Also, minor spoilers up to Book 4 and every episode of the show that has released as of yet. Episode 1, of course, opens on that insane cold open, and like I said in my last video, it's great. This isn't how Liandrin left the tower in the books, but it still fits the world and characters, and it works better for a TV series. It also sets up trouble for the White Tower going forward. Most of what I have to say regarding our main crew in this episode, they did not come back to Tar Valon at this point in the books, and it looks like they may be skipping most of Book 3. But I can excuse differences there because, looking at what the show does do again, it sets up a lot of book-related plots and character arcs. From Egwene's accepted test to the prophecies of the dragon and the future of the Aiel and Rand. In a way, this is a lot closer to the books than the first 2 seasons, despite the changes in the story structure. I like where this sets up all the character relationships, Rand and Egwene leaving to meet the Aiel, Perrin returning home, Egwene noticing the cracks in the White Tower, Nynaeve and Lan's budding relationship, and Aviendha and Elaine, a relationship I wasn't expecting to get developed this early. This may be blasphemous to say for book fans, but I kinda prefer the show's portrayal of romantic relationships, simply due to the fact that the characters aren't constantly snapping at each other, and are able to open up and be vulnerable instead of constant "I hate you, but I love you" that the books do with everyone. Okay, maybe that's not a controversial take since romance in the book series is known to be one of its weakest aspects. Though now we move on to my least favorite change, thus far, that being Lanfear. She is something of an anti-hero in the books, but Rand doesn't keep seeing her after it's revealed who she really is. She isn't exactly with the other Forsaken, but she is never one of the good guys. Whenever she shows up, it's bad news. Sometimes her interests align with the heroes, but that's super rare. And the whole Bubble of Evil scene. Overall, how haunting the scene is really good. I like how much it feels like a horror movie, but I do kinda have a problem with the fact that it was caused by Lanfear. In the books, anytime the Dark One touches the world is a big deal, especially as the events become more frequent and more severe. It's a sign of him returning, and this same event in the books is arguably the most memorable instance since it was the first time the heroes had really faced any direct influence from him. Though it could be that Lanfear is using the true power, which would kind of save it and kind of make it something the Dark One did, but that aspect of the scene is still a bit of a disappointment. And everyone now has to go their separate ways. As one last point, I do like how Moghedien is set up this season with her being the one who creates the Grey Men. So any attack by a Grey Man this season is her doing. Setting her up as a major antagonist this season is something else I do like, knowing what else is being foreshadowed at this point. On to episode 2. I don't have too much to say about Rand and Egwene and the Aiel this episode, though I will say, like with episode 1 this season, I like how it sets up plot threads for later on. Egwene's dream world training being one of them. And what happens here obviously isn't the same as it was in the books, but it fills the same purpose. Rand training with Lan and there being some talk about his internal struggle, which is what made me love him as a character in the books, is good. Same with Moiraine's tenuous but still trusting relationship with him, as she tries to keep him from flying off the rails. But the majority of this episode is dedicated to the Turkand house visiting the White Tower, and all the new characters with roles to play. Morgheze is portrayed as more cutthroat than I remember her being in the books, though the books also imply that she did some sketchy things to take the throne of Andor. Despite that, I'm guessing this was added to capture a bit of that Game of Thrones vibe. The political stuff surrounding Andor is the most Game of Thronesy in the books get, so this is likely a preview of that. Returning to the present, knowing what happens later, portraying the princes as arrogant little shits is a good move, though I'll touch on that more later. I will also say I love how the show takes the opportunity to introduce so many important characters and plot points. If you know, you know. But the best part of this episode to me is Elaine. Her mom wants her back home, and she wants to stay and become a full Aes Sedai, and not just for the political advantage it would provide. In the books, it's referred to as, quote, the first openly Aes Sedai Queen of Andor in a very long time, but the specificity isn't too important for the sake of the adaptation. It's obvious that Elaine is going to end this by doing what she wants, but giving her the beginning of a character arc claiming her own path this early is another good decision for the show, with how the cast has expanded thus far. Perrin returning to the Two Rivers is mostly good as well, though I'm a bit disappointed the town is in better shape than it was in the books. There, it was a shock to see how different the place was. Here though, it just has the feeling of unease thanks to the White Cloaks. Their presence is okay, I guess, but it doesn't hit as hard as it did in the books. Finally, Elaida is staying at the tower. If you know, you know. Episode 3. So the cold open reveals the Forsaken meeting, and we get our first look at traveling in the series. The show, unlike the books, wastes no time revealing that Gabriel is actually Ravine. We also get that self-centered dynamic between the Forsaken, which is another important element from the books, and I like how it's brought in here. One of the primary plots this episode is the Aiel. We start to get a sense of their culture with the different roles people serve, and their strict view of honor and obligation compared to the Westlands. And here's where we start getting a sense of Teleron Riode and what it really is. We've seen it a whole bunch in the show already, but now that it's being explored, a lot of prior scenes are going to make a lot more sense. Possibly even for book fans as well, if there are any significant changes from how it works in the books. There's also a surprisingly humanizing plot in this episode added for Liandrin, as humanizing as it can be for a member of the Black Ajra who tears up a wedding and takes control of the place using compulsion. But we do see that she does care about her family to an extent. And of course, the reveal of what she's actually here for, setting up an important confrontation towards the end of the season. Again, if you know, you know. Similar to the reveal with Ravine and Liandrin, due to the show's more spread out perspectives earlier in the story, we also get some foreshadowing with Elaida and what her plans are. This could make what she ends up doing more built up to than it was in the books, where it felt a bit like it came out of nowhere. There's also a lot more inner conflict with Min in the show compared to the books. Min was, I'd say, one of the most minor main characters in the books. Here though, she actually hates her viewings and will presumably learn to accept them later, as the fate of the world will depend on it. I mean, Elaida's certainly not going to help the heroes with her foretellings. Moving on over to Perrin, he finally moves on from the death of his wife. It was 2 seasons late, but it does feel satisfying and make Layla's death feel like a bit more than just fridging. And we get Sen Bui, the little shit. Just the asshat I remember from the books. And then Perrin inspires everyone to fight, and we get a proper meeting for Lord Luke and Faile. 2 characters that are going to be quite pivotal going forward. But the true highlight of this episode is Mat. He's still frustrated with everything, and Min getting some serious foreshadowing with him doesn't exactly help. But when Nynaeve comes to ask him to come with her and Elaine, he gets provoked by the Andoran princes. And we get the legendary Mat scene, where despite the fact that he's still recovering, he destroys them. I'm a bit disappointed that he didn't humiliate them in front of a crowd, but damn, it was satisfying with how arrogant Galad and Gawain have been portrayed thus far. And that music playing in the background. Easily the best part of the episode. Then Mat and Min leave with Nynaeve and Elaine to go hunt Liandrin. Final thoughts. My thoughts here are largely a better version of what I already discussed in my video on seasons 1 and 2. A lot of important book stuff is touched upon here. A lot of that is foreshadowing, but the events we do get still hit, even if they are happening under different circumstances and in a different order than they were in the books. Also, Donalfin has officially won me over as the new Mat at this point. I'll miss Barney Harris, but Donalfin has captured Mat's mad recovery and his shaky grasp on himself while still being sassy as hell. We'll have to wait and see on how he reacts to that luck factor though. And with all the foreshadowing we've been getting, I can't wait to see how everything is going to work out for the rest of the season. Thank you all for watching, I'm Kylan Mythos, and I'll see you all next time.